Hey everyone, welcome back to the Radical Care for Christian Counselors podcast with me. My name is Bethany Boring, and we're so excited that you are here today. If this is your first time here, what is radical care? Radical care here means community, application, resources, and encouragement so that you can dare to do more than just survive, but to step out and thrive in your calling as a Christian counselor, as a coach, as a Christian leader, pastoral care, whatever role that you find yourself. But mainly, I work with Christian counselors, mental health professionals, and pastoral care leaders who really want to do more than just a one-on-one connection, that really want to help in their group experience to go deeper and heart transformational level and release these groups in their own environment. So if you're here, glad to be here. This is just a one episode. Normally, when I do these podcasts or series, but I'm going to do a one-off episode just based on kind of a prompting that I felt after this incredible weekend that I had with my church, with my freedom session groups that I help facilitate and lead here at LifePoint. And I've gotten this question so many times, and I thought, you know what? We're going to do a podcast about this. We are going to do a podcast episode about this very question because I think, because of my experience and some of the training and a lot of the just deep conversations that I've had, I've seen that my definition of freedom and my experience of freedom tends to be different than what a lot of other people would define it as. So I just want to spend an episode around this. So this whole episode, by the time you leave, my goal for you is to just experience kind of how I would define freedom and kind of wrestle with how you define freedom. Because wherever you are, if you are saying to someone, I want you to taste freedom, I want you to experience freedom, especially if you're working with that person as a counselor, as a coach, as a pastoral care professional, you want to be on the same page with that person, right? And for the longest time, I think I thought freedom was breaking free from something, regardless if it's depression, regardless if it's anxiety, regardless if it was a drug addiction, regardless if it was a restoring of a relationship. It was to make sure I could break free or connect what didn't seem to be connected. And God used a certain circumstance in my life to really change that, because I realized that no matter what I did, I would never really achieve true freedom that way. And so here's a little bit of my story, and then I'll go into my definition. My story is, a couple years ago, I found myself as a single parent as a result of divorce, and I was walking through a lot of different counseling at the time. I'd always been in and out of counseling my entire life because none of us are perfect, right? But honestly, and I'm going to use this as a side note here, if you were a coach, if you were a counselor, if you were a pastoral care professional, I would love for you to be in counseling as you're helping someone else. Even if it's coach, if it's counselor, whatever that person is, whatever that role is, to have that safe connection, that one place that you can come to week after week after week and really connect with. So I continue to have a counselor regardless if I feel like I need one or not. I do, because of the role that I have and because of who I work with. I make sure that I'm in a safe place, that I'm in a maturing place week after week after week. Side note aside. Anyway, so I'm in counseling and I'm going through just a lot of this, like, where am I right now? What is happening? Um, Processing some of this, but then also realizing, oh my goodness, like my whole life is changing right now. I have three boys that need me. I was in the middle of a little bit of job transition, really trying to figure out where I want to step out and thrive to go. I just felt like everything was just blowing up and I had no control over my life. And I had somebody in my life at that time that I was going through what was called Think Differently Academy training at the same time, because I really wanted to bring freedom and freedom appointments into my church. And I didn't really know what that was, but I knew that I needed something and I wanted to be offered that something to everybody else. And when I started looking for something, I go on this quest. And I know there's other people that are like me, but when you go on this quest, it's like, I've got to find this and nothing else is important. And you just, like, I love find resources. And so one of the biggest resources that I had at that time in my life was Bob Hamp. Bob Hamp and Polly Hamp, they own Think Differently Academy, and you can go on their website, tdacad.com. And at that time, they were starting their very first ever training and certification group. And I remember hearing about this and going, oh my goodness, like I'd followed Bob for a long time. And I was like, I want to be able to do this. Like, I want to be able to sit down with somebody like he does. He goes to such a deeper level, him and Polly Hamp both, and they have just so much different training. I'm like, how cool would this be to spend a couple months with them and other people that love to study this stuff? So long story short, God provided in amazing ways. Our church was like, yes, we want to take this move as well. So with the combination of both of those things coming together, I got to be part of this training. And one of the very first videos that I watched from Bob in this training was really a redefinition of freedom. And the picture that he pointed out, and I'll never forget it because he's so vivid with imagery, I got to experience just a couple weeks ago as well. So I want you to picture somebody that literally is born in prison. This can't really happen, but anyway, this baby's born in prison, and the only thing this baby ever knows is what's inside that prison cell. And so, what does that one inmate want to have? He looks out the bars of the prison or the windows of the prison, or maybe he's in the yard playing basketball, and he just knows that he can't get out. He's never seen anything beyond that yard, beyond that hill that he knows goes to a street. He's heard of mountains, he's heard of rivers, he's heard of lakes, he's heard of oceans, but he's never experienced it. So freedom to him is simply going beyond that hill, going beyond what he's ever experienced. But see, what happens when he gets out, does that mean he's completely free? That mean that he can't be held back by anything? Or does that mean that he's going to come up against other things that can prevent that freedom? Does that mean what happens when the lake isn't all that he thought it was going to be, or the ocean isn't all what he thought it would be? What happens when he learns about rent and mortgages and relationship problems and kids and laws and how to make a living? What about those things that aren't even in the picture yet? So you can see his freedom is constantly under attack because what he hasn't experienced yet, he can't even put into the equation. What if freedom actually looked like the presence of someone, not the absence of something? Meaning, when we introduce freedom, and when I want to introduce freedom into the realities of clients and the reality of my own life and to my kids' life, I don't want to teach them, hey, when you get done with this one addiction, or hey, when you get over that anxiety, or hey, when you get over that depression, you are going to be free, because that's a lie. There's always going to be something else, right? The enemy doesn't just stop at one thing. He'll take anything, right? And use that as a trap to make us feel like we're trapped and not and free. And so how I define freedom is it's the presence of someone, and that someone, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And the Holy Spirit is inside of us no matter what. And our Father and our Son relationship, and even the Holy Spirit relationship, is the biggest three relationships I work with my clients, and how to really talk and hear and receive, but not only that, broadcast out of those relationships into the lives of other people. And so, freedom in a nutshell, and this is how Bob defines it: freedom is not the absence of something, that addiction, that desire to have freedom outside the prison walls, that relationship being healed. It's not when all that happens. Instead, it's the presence of someone in the middle of all of that. And that someone is Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. God walking with us in and through those challenges. And see, a lot of times it's like, no, when I get through the storm, I'm going to experience real freedom. I'm going to experience real joy. I'm experiencing real happiness. But the truth is, we can experience all of that even in the middle of the storm, because that is the presence. That is God speaking in and through us. That's our receiving, the ability to receive in the middle of all of that, that ability to just sit with what is and what God is continuing to do in and through that circumstance. And then also the ability to share what that is with other people and have genuine connections with other people, not pretending like it's all okay, not pretending like it's all fine, but really sharing what God is doing in and through it. That is freedom. That is the freedom that is promised right here on this earth. And so this weekend, we had what was called a Freedom Session graduation at Life Point. I am the Freedom and Care Coordinator, which means I get to coordinate Freedom Session. And you can check out that website. I think it's freedomsession.com. And we got to have Ken, who is the founder and actually author of a lot of the Freedom Session material. And he was down here. And it was really interesting because a lot of the tension that sometimes we feel during these Freedom Session graduations is we tend to go, well, during this part of the program, or when this came up during this part of the Freedom Session, um, really we kind of got away from some of that language and we said, hey, what is God doing right now? What is God? Because we don't want to have Freedom Session being, okay, when you get done with Freedom Session and you graduate across the stage, that you're just completely free. That you're free because you usually, a lot of people enter in Freedom Session because there's something going on in their life that they want to be fixed, that they want to be healed, that they want to do away from, right? But then they find in this amazing experience over these at least 21, some of them even go 31 weeks together with the same people, sharing the same stories, sharing the struggles week after week after week as they're doing a lot of the hard work of forgiveness, of admitting what's going on, of stories about when they've been hurt, about denial, about trying to just work through the anger and the sadness and the rejection, but also the joy in the middle of all of it. And within that experience, they start to realize, wait a second, freedom can't be me necessarily getting rid of this addiction, although I know it's important. I know it can happen, and this might even happen, but that's really not freedom. Freedom is really my ability to be myself and all of these people being able to be themselves and the joy that's in this relationship. And that can only happen if God is who he says he is, and if God is it present in my life, and if I'm walking with him, and if he's walking with these other people. That is the only way this happens. So thus, real freedom must be the presence of God in the middle of the craziness, because that is the only way that is really experienced. And so on Friday night, when a lot of these Freedom Session graduates held up the new labels that God had given them, that was words that he had received, that they had received in and through this journey that they had, not necessarily from other people, not necessarily through the experience, but through God himself, speaking truth, speaking life, rewriting their stories. And that's what's really impossible. That's what's really impossible to really find in a lot of these other places, because the whole reason that they exist is to get over a certain hangup or a certain addiction or a certain struggle. And although that's important, more important than that is real freedom in our relationship with Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, our relationship with God, and how that is, and how we can offer that to other people. So hopefully that's more of a clear thing. And step out and thrive. When we talk about thrive, we're talking about through him receiving impossible victories every day. THRIVE. And yes, some people have asked, can you do a podcast about that? I'm sure that's coming. So hold on. But today we're just really talking about how we define freedom. So for some of you all, this might be a huge mind shift and you're like, I have never thought about it this way. For some of you guys, it might be something that you've heard before and you might want to process a little bit more. I'm going to try to remember to put links down at the bottom of this podcast, but just in case I forget with everything else going on, you can Google Bob Hamp. He's got a lot of different YouTube videos, but also check out tdacad.com. And if you're interested in Freedom Session, I believe the website is freedomsession.com, and you can check that out. And as always, as a lot of y'all know, BethanyBoring.com. That is the main website for all of my resources. I think all of the other resources that I mentioned already on that page. Plus, you can get involved. If it's not already launched, it will be launching next month, the brand new community where we have totally different levels. We have a free where everybody can access, and we got a huge challenge coming up in June, which I would love for you to be a part of, and it's free to get started with that. And plus, it has a discussion column on there so you can talk about the podcast topics. You can go deeper in community with other people that are Christian counselors, mental health professionals, pastoral care leaders, coaches that are really trying to do this deep, deep level work. And there's also 2 other tiers for those that really want to be in the ongoing tip group. that meets every single Thursday, or every other Thursday, sorry, of the week, of the month. Try that again. Every other Thursday. I think it's the second and fourth Thursday of every month they meet. We meet live, plus you got resources, and we cover one tool, one huge tool that you can use every month, and we practice that together. Or the tip community group, which is 6 months, where you do meet every single week, and we go really deep dive into how to do these groups well, and then how to launch your own group with heart level transformation. So with all that being said, I would love to see you back here next week as we start our huge challenge for the summer. Would love for you to be a part of that. And as always, dare to do more than just survive. Step out and thrive. See you guys later. Have a great week.